Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the beautiful meditation. I know I always say that, but it's always beautiful. I was going to read it again. I think it might help me. I'm kind of at a loss for words. So it's dwell. You are the light itself. Rely on yourself. Do not rely on others. The Dharma is the light. Rely on the Dharma. Do not rely on anything other than the Dharma. So I remember this quite well because Judith's late husband, Philip, used to read it before we would start the Sunday morning meditation at Cloud Cottage over many years. And it's very, very powerful for me and other people, many other people that experienced it. So that was kind of Philip's talent. Was at times he could really kind of channel Thay's and the Buddha's energy. Sometimes I forget this chant actually was the Buddha, but Thay was so deeply in tune with the Buddha and the spirit of the Buddha and the light of the Buddha that sometimes you forget which is probably good. So when we talk about home, I've kind of been trained. I don't know how. I mean, I can try to articulate how I was trained. But when I think of home and I think of dwelling in our home, in the here and the now, I'm drawn back to it, kind of the timeless nature of our being. And that sounds pretty abstract, but I think it can be less abstract when we're really willing to examine what this being, whatever being we are, actually is. And, to explore our experience of thinking, feeling, hearing, and seeing. And that kind of, our experiences kind of makes up what we think of as I. So I'm drawn to just remembering, that like when we were 5 years old, we called ourselves I. And then when we're 10, we call ourselves I. When we're 20, 30, 40, and move on. And then if we keep going, we'll eventually get to my age and some of our age. And we still call ourselves I. So one thing we can say, from our life experience is, it is our actual experience. It is the test of reality, not what we think about it. So our actual experience is this I has always been here every moment of our life. That's what we refer to when we refer to what it is that knows our experience. Knowing in the sense of being aware of, experiencing, or witnessing. So like a thought arises and we know it, we're aware of it, we experience it, then it dissolves into another thought, and there's this continual stream of thoughts. And then if we notice sensations in our body, they arise and we know them, and they're always constantly changing into new sensations. But when the thoughts and the sensations dissolve into new forms, what remains is this I, our awareness of being present. And so, Buddha's teaching is basically that which is aware of our experience, that which is always with us, that which lights up our experience and is always here with us, never leaving us, is the most intimate place we can be, because it's always here in the now also. So it's the one thing we can rely on. We can't rely on our thoughts, feelings, sights and sounds. We can't rely on our personal experience to be always here. And in fact, we can't rely on our body to always be here and always be supporting us in the same way. It's still kind of surprising to me when I reflect on the teachings of modern science as well as the Buddhist teachings, that even our means of identifying things, objects, experiences, they're always changing too. So our organs of seeing, hearing, feeling, and thinking are always in flux. But we remain as the self, as the light of the self. So what Thay is saying when he says, come home to the here and the now, we don't have to grasp onto our experience, our thinking, feeling, or turn away from our experience in order to be happy, because just here in the now, relying on this self, this I that's always with us, that's all we need. And that our personal experiences arise within this awareness. That's our actual experience. That's not theory. That's our actual experience. We've never experienced anything outside of our awareness. We have to be there. Our ever-present I has to be here now for the sun to light up the sky. So when Buddha says dwell in this way, I see it as Thay saying, look deeply. And to look deeply is to allow our attention, which is normally focused and fixated on what we normally think of as outside of us, to reflect back and allow the light of our mind, of our awareness, to sink into the heart of awareness that is our source, that's always with us. So dwelling in the light of our true nature is dwelling in the light of what lights up our experience, what makes our human experience possible, and that always saturates our experience. In other words, our experience is totally pervaded by this light of awareness. It totally pervades our thinking, our feeling, our seeing and hearing, but it's not limited by them. And we have to explore, for me, it's sensations. I'm afraid of pain. I'm afraid of suffering in the form of pain. If we really are open and generous and patient with our impulses to have to grab onto things in order to be safe, or to turn away from things in order not to be hurt, if we're willing to really explore that experience of suffering. So many teachers say that less and less do we need any self-conscious effort, but just allow the light of our true nature to dissolve, absorb. And even if we hurt more, it can we learn to be bothered less by what we normally call afflictions. So learn to rely on this self. Do not rely on others. In a way means don't see others as separate from this self, because they're not. The recognition of our shared being means we are free to share our joy of our shared being with others, but we don't need it as something outside of ourselves, because we can see that we are one with each other. And so our true self is shining through us and through others. And we don't need just the objective experience to be happy, but we're free to enjoy the objective experience and our capacity to help others turn their light towards themselves, their big self. And this is how we learn to dwell in our shared being, and how to not rely on anything else than this self. The Dharma is the light. We are the light. So we learn to not rely on anything other than the Dharma. So that's it for me for now. Shall we... I'm hesitant to call on everybody, but Judith, you can call on people if you want.
I love to call on people. I like to put them on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Roger. My goodness. I just felt that. I felt what you were saying in my body. It was just beautiful. Thank you so much. I wanted to quote something that you said, but I forgot it now. It was so long ago.
Well, anyway, I had a confession I was going to make, because thinking of impermanence and how the life force is just flowing by and everything is always changing. We were talking last week about Ty's poem, "The Earth is Waiting for You," and that was another poem that Philip would recite. It was very powerful, before we do the walking meditation. And I wanted to talk, because we talked about that last week, and I wanted to talk about Philip then, and I couldn't remember his first name. And it was like, my memory's been fading some, but someone who I knew that well and was that close, it's the first time I'd actually forgotten their first name. And so I wasn't going to say Judith's husband, I was kind of hesitant. I don't want people to think I'm losing my mind if I say I forgot his first name. But now it's kind of a relief to just confess that, we are in transmigration here. We're all losing our mind. We're losing our ego too. So
yes, we're laughing at ourselves, forgetting words and names that we know perfectly well. I mean, welcome to my world, Roger. So as we go around and you share, I would also be interested to know if some of you would like to extend the time for about 15 minutes so that we can make sure that everyone has a chance to share fully. So that's a question I'm putting out to you, and also would love to have your responses to both the meditation and the Dharma talk. Kat?
You always call me first, Judith. I feel like.
Because I know you're going to say something lovely.
Oh, well, you're sweet. I don't know about that. I really enjoyed both today's talk and today's meditation. And this idea of home is something that I guess I've thought about quite a bit. And of course, we think of our family members often when we think of home. And so it was also like a moment in the meditation when you said, rely on the self. You can only rely on the self, rely on the Dharma. And I think that was important too, because I sort of then paused and was sort of reevaluating a little bit. But for me, I think home is when I allow myself and I feel vulnerable and completely open to all the experiences of the world. And when I feel most willing to face fear or anything that makes me feel like outside. I think a lot of times, the times when we don't feel like we're at home is when we feel other than, and often that's a pattern that we do to ourselves. I mean, sometimes, of course, it can come externally, but I find that the most poignant of those times is when we make ourselves feel other. And so dwelling in the true self, in the soul or the I, and being at home means, at least to me, willing to recognize those patterns and then to just surrender to the flow. And so this weekly practice is really important, because I think over and over again, it's that practice of surrendering to the flow. And I guess the other thing it reminds me of is this idea of inviting your demons to tea, and which is always like a story that's resonated with me a lot, which is, to not push away those things that cause suffering or that make us scared, but to kindly and gently invite them in, and to sit with them. And so I wasn't necessarily doing that today, but it was a reminder that that's an important part of the practice too. So thank you both for a really lovely meditation.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
You can just jump in and not wait for me to call upon you, So, Robert, could we hear from you?
Yeah, I'm jumping in. And that's my name. To Roger's point, I can relate to that well, because I occasionally will come up blank on a person, place, or thing, which I was always very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a blackout or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then an hour later, I'll remember that. But it's not. I'll join your club, Robert or Roger, and just know that someone else has the same blanks now and then. So, but I was thinking about the. You started out about the home thing. I was reflecting back. I probably have physically moved, 8 or 9 times over the course of my life, and in different places. And 3 of those times was when I was, still living at home with family as a child, and then not as a youth. So, but that was then. My mind went to a home is not a place. It's people in a place, which could be family or others. So places in that way, and a home in that way. So it was nice to be able to reflect on that. And wherever I lived, the I was with me. Okay, that was the constant throughout the whole all that time. The I, and and relying on something other than I was in my younger years was foreign to me. I always relied on myself, the I or the me, to do anything, to accomplish things, to get past things, whatever. Okay, so relying on the Dharma that's not a foreign idea to me now, but it would have been 20 years ago. Like I don't do that. I don't rely on others or other things. I just rely on me, and that doesn't work out very well sometimes. So, I appreciate the talk this morning. I have to disconnect after an hour or two. We were talking before we started here. I've got a really tight schedule on Sunday morning, so I will just check out at 8:30 for myself. Okay, but I appreciate your extending changing the time was okay, but then it gets really tight for me to get to my next commitment. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. I
Thanks,
knew
Bob.
that you were, I was aware that you would have to leave at 9:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you have to leave before that, feel welcome to do it. Just don't leave us.
I'm good. So, 9:30 is good. I think. Okay.
So, Martha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, well, I'm new at this, new at the Zoom, not so new at meditation, but new at the Sangha. I've always done it alone or with one other person. So this is a new experience for me. And I feel that hearing other people expressing thoughts that I have may be going to be very helpful in bringing peace into myself, which is what my journey is, and the Dharma being the path and the light is what I struggle with, but what I bring myself back to during my meditations alone is this is the path, always. And relying on myself, also not relying on others, but bringing others into myself and acknowledging that others are all part of myself is something that I'm working with right now. So thank you. I will be here every Sunday morning as long as I can.
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, thank you, Martha.
It's beautiful.
It sounds like you're really already reflecting and contemplating on what the rest of us are too. So I think we can all support you, and you can support us through that.
Thank you.
Roger, I have to excuse myself for a minute, so would you take over?
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Anybody else want to just jump in?
I'll jump in. Hi.
Morning.
It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, as always. And I loved the meditation, was wonderful. And for someone who didn't have words, Roger, you're amazing. So thank you so much.
That's the thing, they're not really my words.
Well, wherever they came from,
Yeah.
your mouth was moving. Yeah, this was, to me, it's so interesting because when Judith first mentioned the word home, I began thinking physical places of home, and also especially Sunday morning at Cloud Cottage. I'm sorry Judith isn't here to hear this, but because the chant just brought back those memories. I felt so at home at Cloud Cottage, and it was just a beautiful memory that came back during that time. And then, of course, there's the home inside me, the I that is always present. So it was jumping from one place to the other. And it was kind of interesting. And generally, I do feel at home in most places, or wherever I am. I seem to be able to do that. So it's really just a very sweet time. And the chanting was wonderful. I mean, Judith, where are you?
I'm here.
Oh, good. Because that just brought me back to Cloud Cottage too. Just that chant that I remember hearing, and it just warmed my heart. So I'm very appreciative this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma.
Thank you, Norma. We have time.
Hi, my name is Timothy. It's good to see you all, every one of you this morning. And the meditation, I was definitely present for all of that. And in body, mind, spirit, and being, I was with it. And that was amazing in and of itself. And, and what Roger shared and what was part of the meditation, I always said since I was, I don't know, a teenager, that wherever I hung my hat, that was, my hat's changed a lot. My surroundings changed a lot. Well, I changed a lot, but I was still at home. As present as I could be. And another thought, one of my early poetic thoughts, expressions was to my mom and dad that where we were living wasn't a house, it was made into a home. You know, I them, mom and dad, and brothers and sisters, we all made it what it was. I don't know how it remains in my mind. And I'm fortunate that I have a very good long-term memory. My more spontaneous short-term memory is very short. Word, but I know I've used it so many, but I can't think of it right then. Or somebody's first name. You know, it's like, and when I'm talking to somebody and they're with me and know what I'm talking about, they say, "Oh, this is who, this is," you know, would mention the name Bella. That happened to me yesterday when I was talking to her grandmother. I really get that home is where my being, my spirit, it's where I'm present and not in my mind drifting off to what's next or just whatever my random access memory puts in there. But I appreciate Judith and Roger and everybody who's here who contributes to this Sangha. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Timothy. Yeah, you know, I was just reflecting as you were talking about how even really, really deeply enlightened people like Thai and Yogananda, or I've read things where they've said, you know, they face tremendous challenges in their life, and even though they're these incredibly, you know, realized beings, they still have deeper and deeper epiphanies or revelations of how, yeah, everywhere is home. You know, there's no end to that deepening of that realization that we're always at home.
I don't have that much to add. I was to what everybody else. There's so many things you had express. The whole, you know, the dwelling and being home and but I mean, I agree with all of you, and thank you. By the way, thanks so much for the meditation. It was wonderful, and the talk. For you know, I just the only thing I guess I can add. my first experience of spirituality, I think it was when I was like 7, and I, for some reason, I was allowed to join the choir in the church where I was going to school, in a Catholic church, and